The purpose of this expose is to present the hazards associated with the wearing of artificial nails, along with supporting scientific documentation. Artificial plastic nails can be considered a type of biohazard. They do contribute to waste in the environment, and they are also a chemical laboratory hazard. All three of these aspects of artificial plastic nails are going to be discussed, and not necessarily in this order. Artificial nails are made of plastic. Types of plastic that are used to make artificial nails are polymethyl methacrylate, polyethyl methacrylate, and acrylonitrile butadiene styrene. All of these are polymers, and an example of one of them is shown here. Okay. This is the chemical formula diagram of polymethyl methacrylate. The repeat unit is here, and a single molecule of polymethyl methacrylate will consist of 9,000 to 10,000 of these repeat units. Polymethyl and polyethyl methacrylate are known as acrylics. Polyethyl methacrylate has a CH2CH3 group in the place of this methyl group here. Polymethyl methacrylate, so this polymer, is known by the trade names of lucite and plexiglass. It has glass-like properties such as high strength, but it is only about half as dense as glass. Nail tips, on the other hand, are made of acrylonitrile butadiene styrene, another polymer, and they are slightly softer and more bendable than the acrylics. In large enough pieces, these plastics are recyclable, but here is the catch. Okay. Plastic nails are too small to be accepted for recycling. Okay? And additionally, plastic nails are not biodegradable. So why can't they be accepted for recycling? If something is too small, there are equipment constraints and limitations. And additionally, a plastic or anything is biodegradable if it is able to be broken down chemically by biological means, i.e. by bacteria present in soil and water. So where do all of these plastics end up in the environment? Well, here is a picture of where they might end up. Okay. Small pieces of them end up in the water and washing up on beaches. And here we have a young sea turtle who is trying to breathe in a puddle of water filled with plastic in Rio de Janeiro, Brazil. As you can see, the turtle is surrounded by waste and is probably sad. This photo is from a UN website called United Nations Exhibits in Images, Plastic is Forever. Along the same theme, and from the same website, is what I call the plastic Loch Ness Monster. Off the coast of Brittany, France, it looks like a plastic cookie monster. People were probably cleaning the coastline and decided to have fun with the debris. I mean, what else can you do with it? So what will eventually happen to all of this plastic if no one cleans it up? And by cleaning it up, that implies removing it from the water or wherever else it is and placing it somewhere else to recycle, burn, or bury. Eventually, sunlight, rain, ultraviolet radiation from the sunlight will effect breaking down the bonds in these plastic polymer molecules, and the plastic pieces will become smaller and become microplastics and unfortunately continue polluting as microplastics. The process of environmental degradation of plastics may take 20 to 500 years. How do we know this if plastics weren't around 500 years ago? Did scientists travel into the future? One way to figure this out is to expose a plastic sample to high temperatures, humidity, and ultraviolet radiation in a machine or device called a weather-ometer. It is an advanced aging machine for weathering testing or weatherability testing, laboratory accelerated weathering, all meaning essentially the same thing. The purpose of this device is to accelerate the demise of the plastic sample. Then the time needed for its degradation or whatever property is being tested. Maybe it could be just the point at which cracking of the surface is observed is determined, rather observed experimentally. Instead of time travel to the future, okay, the future comes to the plastic sample, so to speak, when it is placed in this machine and exposed to environmental conditions cumulatively equivalent to years of sunlight, high temperatures, and humidity in a matter of hours, days, or weeks. Hence the advanced aging. So the time required for degradation, cracking, or in some cases even only discoloration in an advanced aging machine can be correlated to the time required for that process to occur at the UV temperature or humidity levels to which that plastic would be exposed somewhere in the environment. Therefore, how long it takes for the sample to degrade under various environmental conditions can be approximated. This particular machine is the Atlas CI 4400. In case anyone is interested, what a beauty! Wouldn't it be fun to work with such a machine? The company who manufactures this machine is called Atlas Material Testing Technology, located in Mount Prospect, Illinois. They have published a 108-page book called Weathering Testing Guidebook. And I believe it could be a very, very good review of basic concepts in physics and chemistry. Even if someday tiny pieces of plastic could be sent to a recycling facility, there are other reasons to avoid plastic nails. Now for the fun stuff. Bacteria. From the American Journal of Infection Control, it has been known since 1989 that artificial nails cause an increase in bacteria. Bacterial carriage by artificial versus natural nails. Cultures, meaning bacterial cultures, were obtained before and after hand washing from the fingertips of 56 nurses with artificial nails and 56 nurses with natural nails. After hand washing, there were higher numbers of colony-forming units of gram-negative rods cultured from the fingertips of nurses with artificial nails than from nurses with natural nails. This is not good news for the wearers of artificial nails. Now, the obvious question is, what is a gram-negative rod? Well, a gram-negative rod is the form or shape of a gram-negative bacteria. And a gram-negative bacteria is one that does not retain a violet dye in a laboratory technique called gram staining, which is named after the Danish bacteriologist Hans Christian Gram. Many gram-negative bacteria are disease-producing agents or pathogens. A pathogen is a disease-producing agent. Also, gram-negative bacteria comprise the majority of antibiotic-resistant bacteria. Now, here are some gram-negative bacteria and the diseases they cause. The bacteria Yersinia pestis causes the plague, and it's transmitted to animals and humans via fleas. Rodents can be carriers. This disease is 100% fatal if not treated within 18 hours of onset of symptoms. Death occurs within 48 hours. Roughly 2,000 cases are reported to the World Health Organization annually. Now, a little note about rodents. Several species have variable resistance to this disease, which could lead to them having an asymptotic carrier status. The rodents themselves do not display the disease, though. Then there is Vibrio cholerae. The disease that bacteria causes is cholera, and is transmitted via contaminated water. This bacteria adheres to the intestinal mucosa and produces a toxin with a 50% fatality in untreated patients. These are severe microbes. A more commonly seen microbe that causes serious diseases and even mortality, especially in immunocompromised people, is Escherichia coli, otherwise known as E. coli, which is the major cause of urinary tract infections, infections in the bloodstream, pneumonia, and it can also cause gastroenteritis. Another very important microbe is Salmonella, which can infect those who eat undercooked contaminated food such as chicken or eggs. Salmonella infects gastrointestinal tract and can cause gastroenteritis. So therefore, one can catch or come down with gastroenteritis from wearing artificial nails. Who would have thought? Who would have thought? Now, the National Center for Biotechnology Information has a section called gram-negative bacteria, and they essentially summarize all of, what was said here. The gram-negative bacteria have a great ability to cause disease in humans and can reach almost all systems in the organism, such as the digestive system, nervous system, urinary system, and bloodstream, causing diarrheal gastroenteritis until severe meningitis. By the way, it is fatal meningitis if it's not treated. Such microorganisms colonize the intestines, airways, and skin, which favors the spread to other parts of the human organism, especially in immunocompromised individuals. Basically, one shouldn't want to get any of these diseases or even increase one's risk of getting them by wearing artificial nails. Now that some pathogenic bacteria have been mentioned, here are even more results from the National Institutes of Health. Okay. Pathogenic organisms associated with artificial fingernails worn by healthcare workers. Here are some of their results. In study 1, potential pathogens were isolated from more samples obtained from artificial nails than native nails, 92% versus 62%. Colonization of artificial nails increased over time. By day 15, 71% of cultures yielded a pathogen compared with 21% on day 1. Basically, this means that things get more dangerous with time. Continuing, more organisms were formed on the surface of artificial nails than native nails. So essentially, the state of having plastic polymers covering the nails is conducive to the growth of organisms. Artificial nails provide a more favorable local environment for bacterial growth. Continuing with the article, more healthcare workers with artificial nails had gram-negative bacilli, 47% versus 17%, and yeasts, 50% versus 13%, than control healthcare workers. The conclusions for all of this is that artificial fingernails were more likely to harbor pathogens, especially gram-negative bacilli and yeasts, than native nails. The longer artificial nails were worn, the more likely that a pathogen was isolated. Current recommendations restricting artificial fingernails in certain healthcare settings appear justified. Appear justified? It should read are justified. Artificial nails easily get contaminated with gram-negative bacteria and, as such, are biohazards. Now, the obvious question is, why not just wash off the biohazards? Just wash them off, right? Well, the short answer is washing doesn't work, at least not where gram-negative bacteria are concerned. Here's an interesting study, again from the National Institutes of Health. Effect of hand cleansing with antimicrobial soap or alcohol-based gel on microbial colonization of artificial fingernails worn by healthcare workers. Abstract. This study was undertaken to determine differences in microflora on the nails of healthcare workers wearing artificial nails compared with control healthcare workers with native nails, and to assess the effect on these microflora of hand cleansing with antimicrobial soap or alcohol-based gel. Cultures were obtained from 21 healthcare workers wearing artificial nails and 20 control healthcare workers before and after using antimicrobial soap or alcohol-based gel. The before and after is important here. The variables are before washing, after washing, antimicrobial soap, and alcohol-based gel. Let's look at some of the results very slowly because this is very important. The article, okay? Here's the article. Before cleansing with soap, okay, 86% of healthcare workers with artificial nails had a pathogen, gram-negative bacilli, Staphylococcus isolated compared with 35% of controls. A similar difference was noted before hand cleansing with gel, 68% of those with artificial nails and 28% of those with native or natural nails. So this is the state of things before anything starts getting washed, okay? And here's my little conclusion or statement based on this. About 2.5 times more people wearing artificial nails have pathogens on their hands, presumably in their nails, than those who don't wear plastic nails. Now, where do I get that number? Okay, I took 86% divided by 35%, okay? And I took 68% divided by 28%, 2.46, 2.43. In other words, for every 2 healthcare workers who don't wear artificial nails, but also who have a pathogen on their nails, there are 5 healthcare workers with artificial nails who have a pathogen, okay? Continuing with the article now, in italics, significantly more healthcare workers with artificial nails than controls had pathogens remaining after hand cleansing with soap or gel. Of the healthcare workers with artificial nails, only 11% cleared the pathogens with soap compared with 38% with gel. Of control healthcare workers, only 14% cleared with soap compared with 80% with gel. Restating this last sentence, 80% of natural nailed healthcare workers eliminated the pathogens after alcohol-based gel versus only 38% who cleared it with plastic nails. My little conclusion here, significantly less than half of people with plastic nails were able to clear pathogens after washing. Alcohol-based gels work to some degree, but not if one is wearing plastic nails. See, I don't consider 38% of healthcare workers who wore artificial nails and were able to get rid of, pathogens on their hands using alcohol-based gel. I don't consider that a win for artificial nails. This is a very poor percentage. In fact, getting 38% on an exam is failing, whereas getting 80% on an exam is actually passing with a B. So 80% of people with natural nails who washed with an alcoholic gel were able to clear the pathogens on their hands. That's not a bad percentage, okay? Not bad at all. Now, let us see what the conclusion after all of this is. The authors, their conclusion is artificial acrylic fingernails could contribute to the transmission of pathogens, and their use by healthcare workers should be discouraged. Should be discouraged? It should be eliminated, not simply discouraged. Even conclusions in journals try to be politically correct and not anger the cosmetic industry. Remember, folks, 38% is failing. 38% is failing, okay? Now, I next went to the Cambridge University Press website and did a search on artificial nails. Now, it's very hard to see, but their website is cambridge.org/core/journals/infection-control-and-hospital-epidemiology. Okay. I put in artificial nails here, and here are just a few of the titles of some of the articles that were found. Outbreak of extended spectrum beta-lactamase producing something in a neonatal intensive care unit linked to artificial nails. Outbreak in a neonatal intensive care unit? That can't be good at all. Let's continue. What else did it bring up? Brought up risk of infection associated with artificial fingernails. Pathogenic organisms associated with artificial fingernails worn by healthcare workers. A cluster of hemodialysis-related bacteremia linked to artificial fingernails. Nail polish used by healthcare personnel does not increase the rate of healthcare-associated infections. That is very good news, but that result already showed up in previous studies. Polished nails are like native or natural nails where bacterial growth is concerned, right here. Pseudomonas surgical site infections linked to a healthcare worker with that. Okay. There are more articles as this was just a sampling. Now, these types of results have led to guidelines on artificial nails in healthcare. As far as the World Health Organization is concerned, okay, artificial nails are prohibited for all healthcare workers. The Centers for Disease Control in Atlanta, Georgia, prohibits artificial nails for healthcare workers who have direct contact with high-risk patients, such as in intensive care units. The CDC also has a set of very basic yet very important slides entitled Hand Hygiene in Healthcare Settings Core, and accompanying speaker notes provide an overview of the guideline for hand hygiene in healthcare settings published in 2002. Here is a sampling of these simple slides. So why all the fuss about hand hygiene? Most common mode of transmission of pathogens is via the hands. Infections acquired in healthcare, spread of antimicrobial resistance. Okay, these are very basic compared to what I had just presented. Let's continue just with one more. Fingernails and artificial nails. Natural nail tips should be kept to 1/4 of an inch in length. Artificial nails should not be worn when having direct contact with high-risk patients. Okay? So again, they're going to summarize this, the CDC, similar to all the articles. A growing body of evidence suggests that wearing artificial nails may contribute to transmission of certain healthcare-associated pathogens. Healthcare workers who wear artificial nails are more likely to harbor gram-negative pathogens on their fingertips than are those who have natural nails, both before and after hand washing. Therefore, artificial nails should not be worn when having direct contact with high-risk patients. So these are just some obvious conclusions based on the studies, some of which I presented. However, in Australia, the National Health and Research Medical Council, NHMRC, goes even further. Look at their clinical and experimental optometry guidelines, for example. The NHMRC guidelines recommend that fingernails are kept clean and short, that artificial nails are not worn, and that if nail polish is used, it should not be chipped and it should be removed every 4 days. Would that it were the case for optometrists in the UK, right? Clearly, Specsavers does not have this requirement, and I think they should. There is close, prolonged contact in a type of medical environment, and some clients could be immunocompromised. Remember, the WHO guidelines say that artificial nails should be prohibited for all healthcare workers. Better safe than sorry. Safety first. And I think that most of us would agree that artificial nails have no place in a healthcare setting, as per the WHO. What about in a chemical laboratory? Well, artificial nails are a hazard there too. A big one. Acrylic nails can melt or ignite when exposed to a heat source. The point at which some artificial nails begin to go from the solid to the molten state or 66 degrees Celsius in the case of polyethyl methacrylate, 102 degrees Celsius polymethyl methacrylate. And then a lot of them are soluble in solvents such as chloroform, benzene, toluene, and acetone, to name a few. These are very common solvents in chemistry. So if one had artificial nails and one accidentally spilled a common solvent on one's hands, one would have a mess of dissolving nails. Worse yet, acrylic nails are very flammable. Okay, this is very important. There is an article from the National Institutes of Health entitled, "Beware Flammable Fingernails." Case report, synthetic fingernails result in full thickness burn and terminalization. Terminalization means amputation. In this article, a lady caught one of her artificial nails on fire with a cigarette, and eventually part of her thumb had to be amputated. Now, this article cites another one, this one here, synthetic fingernails as a fire hazard in the chemistry laboratory. Here it is in black and white from the Journal of Chemical Education. And what does this article say? Well, according to the research done by researchers in this article, okay, it takes only approximately 1 second for an artificial nail to ignite with a Bunsen burner or even a birthday candle. Vanover et al. Report that the average ignition time was 1.1 seconds, with 58% igniting in 1 second or less when using a candle flame, while with an average of 0.8 seconds, 87% ignited in 1 second or less when using higher temperature flames from a Bunsen burner. Once ignited, with the source of flame removed, the nails burned to completion. The study also suggested that once ignited, the nails are not easily extinguished. Well, think about the irony, for example, of a fire engineer having artificial nails, perchance. Now, recognize that a lot of gram-negative bacteria are enterobacteriaceae, meaning that they are naturally present in the gastrointestinal tract. Again, also, the irony of someone with a stoma having artificial nails. It is highly probable that if someone with a stoma who has artificial nails contracted a form of gastroenteritis, it was via the nails. I believe restaurant workers also should not have artificial nails. I believe that food that is handled by someone with artificial nails should be cooked or microwaved. I would really like to see the day when personal vanity takes a back seat to environmental action and awareness. Now, people might say, well, what if these people wear gloves? Okay, well, you're wearing gloves. Not all gloves are biodegradable. And even if they are, it does take time. So all of this does contribute to environmental waste. If anyone has any comments, have any questions, please leave them in the comments below. I might be able to answer them. Thank you very much, and be safe, be healthy, and please avoid artificial nails. Thank you very much.